So I just played Dino Crisis, and I was super, super impressed. I always heard that this game was just Resident Evil with dinosaurs, but honestly, it goes way beyond that. It came out between Resident Evil 2 and 3, but the first thing you'll notice immediately that sets it way apart from those games is its 3D rendered environment. The PS1 Resident Evil trilogy made use of pre-rendered backgrounds, which are technically flat images, and then they placed 3D models on top of it in a way that looked relatively convincing. Tons of other games used this trick as well, and while it could produce really detailed and beautifully lit environments, it's static. The first big Resident Evil game to make use of fully 3D rendered environments was Code Veronica, all the way on Dreamcast. And the benefit of not using pre-rendered backgrounds is having a camera that could actually move through the environment. And this allowed them to make even cooler, more immersive camera angles. So knowing all that about Resident Evil and its history of pre-rendered versus real-time rendered environments, imagine my surprise when I found out that Dino Crisis was doing full 3D with a dynamic camera for this genre of game all the way back on the PS1, before Resident Evil 3's release even. This really shocked me and immediately started me out on the right foot with this game. Like, don't get me wrong, I love pre-rendered backgrounds. Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game of all time, but this shit rules. The way that the camera moves through these environments just looks so good. Like, whether it's moving down a hallway following the character, or if it's just like it's just in one spot, you know, pivoting around the room or something like that. Either way, just the way that the camera is able to move around is so cool. And you know, it just I love this look with the PS1 graphics, but having this camera system with these fixed angles, like it's so atmospheric and immersive this way. I really like it. There's also some really particularly neat graphical effects here and there, like this security scanner that lights up your gun red. You know, it's like you got the silhouette of Regina, and then like her gun is all lit up because it's a security station, you know. And this monitor over here like lights up her body with its glow. Like oh man, little details just look so good. How cool is this, dude? Have you ever seen this kind of shit on PS1 before? Here's the scan, and the gun is lit up. This is so cool. So now, other than graphics, the other like most obvious thing that immediately sets this apart from the Resident Evil series, and the thing that I kind of said right at the top, is the dinosaurs, right? Hey, this game's got dinosaurs in it. Could you guess? I wasn't really exactly sure what to expect as far as what kind of gameplay implications this would have, but I'm pretty pleased. The dinosaurs are, in general, much more dangerous than zombies. They're faster, their attacks are vicious, they take a lot of shots to kill. They've got crazy moves that like knock your gun out of your hands, and then you have to go retrieve your gun. They can even follow you between rooms. Like, this is a huge departure from Resident Evil zombies. And again, something that seems a lot more advanced than anything in Resident Evil 3. And then there's a note here. I want to read the note! You're getting blasted. Blast him. Blast him. The gun! I got the gun knocked out of my hand! Okay, hang on. We're gonna give him the loop around. He can jump on the table? Dude, this game is fucking sick. Okay. Alright. Now, hit me with equip, shotgun, anesthetic dart. Wait, I don't think I equipped it. Get him! What the fuck?
Murder time!
Get him! Oh, I missed him! She's a terrible shot, dude! Okay, I'm used to Resident Evil where they just like aim right at the guy if you aim your gun. I don't know if fighting is the right way to go here at all. But I'm trying. Oh no. Okay, he's dead. Holy shit. With the dinosaurs like following you around between rooms, you actually have to kind of like keep this mental track in your head of where the dinosaurs are and where they've followed you, because it can get really dangerous when there's more than one in a single room. Your tools to defend yourself are more advanced as well, though. Like, besides your very limited weaponry, right? You got your guns with your limited ammo, like you'd expect. But there are, most notably, like these shutters that you can open and close in the hallways. The dinosaurs can't get through them, so a big part of avoiding them comes down to quickly reaching the other side of a shutter threshold and closing them. Doing so not only ends them chasing you, but it also gives you some peace of mind knowing that they can't follow you into the next room either if they were closed on the other side of it. So that's like super strategic and cool as well. Lastly, on the topic of the dinosaurs, I just think that the actual act of like juking and dodging them is a bit more fun than it is with zombies. Zombies, I feel like you kind of have to just like watch them stumble around until they like turn, and then you can kind of run behind them, you know? This one feels more like you're actually kind of baiting them into an attack and then running around them. Now, I'm no expert. There's probably, I'm sure zombie dodging experts might disagree with this. But as just kind of a casual player of both Resident Evil and Dino Crisis, I thought that like the big swipe animations of the dinosaurs and stuff are a bit more fun to, bait out and juke and slip by them while, and that kind of thing. I enjoyed the act of running past dinosaurs more than I ever enjoyed the act of running past zombies. So yeah, I mean, this all sounds great so far, right? Like, the graphics are all spruced up, the enemies are all spruced up. The last major point of comparison with Resident Evil, I think, would be the exploration and puzzles. And guess what? I also really like the way that this game handled its puzzles as well. I think the most notable thing off the bat is that this game does not have a file system. So when you find something like a numeric code, you need to either remember it or you might even need to write it down. And I love this. There's times where numbers are written on items that you're able to examine in your inventory, but a lot of the time, you're going to want a pen and paper. Part of why this is cool is that passwords remain the same between runs. So you can actually open certain containers as soon as you find them on repeat playthroughs. But for the more strict progression elements, they have a different layer of security that requires more than just what you can write down. For example, there's this ID card system where you need to know the employee number of whose ID card you want to make, which is something that you just have to remember and write down. But on a repeat playthrough, you couldn't just do it right away because you also need that person's fingerprint data, which is something that you store in your inventory. And so that way, this particular thing is still sort of gated in a gamey way that stops you from sequence breaking so easily that way. And this kind of reminds me of the sort of game design found in stuff like Metroidvanias, where some sequence breaking is clearly intended to be allowed, while harder stops are put in front of places where they definitely want things to be done in order. There's even a set of coded puzzles where the first time you see them, you're likely to need to find a note somewhere describing how to decode them, but on a repeat playthrough, you already know and can go right through. Similarly to like the Metroidvania thing, this kind of breaches that Metroidbrania territory, where that whole thing. In a very small way, it starts to kind of get into that territory, which, again, on PS1 and in this horror genre is just so cool to see. So that's numbers and key items, but I found like the actual puzzles to be very enjoyable as well. I think it's matched pretty well with like Resident Evil 3 in terms of like logic, difficulty, and that kind of stuff. Not a ton to say, except that I thought that the activities are fun and well varied. And most of them have like a repeat at some point with a greater difficulty. So like most puzzles, you'll encounter a second time more difficult, and that's fun too. You get the nice progression feeling there. So now, as you go through the story, to add some extra replay value, there are some choices you can make on how to proceed at certain times. These affect what your objective is for the next little bit before the path reconverges and you're back on the same normal track, and you get a few of these. Currently, I'm left a tad confused on these because I played through the game twice and I chose almost completely opposite choices the second time. And I really liked the way that this changed the gameplay, with like the different objectives that you did. But surprisingly, I still got the same ending, despite the game telling me that there are multiple endings after I beat it the first time and that there was more that I could have done. So at the time of writing this review, I think that there's more hidden things that you have to do rather than just make different choices in order to actually get the story to play out differently. That's super cool. And I'm actually excited to like get back into the game and try getting down to some of these like more cryptic things that you have to do. Because yeah, it's interesting. Like they give you these obvious this or that choices, and then they tell you that there's multiple endings, but the this or that choices aren't just what decides the ending. It seems like you actually have to do more work. So yeah, that's pretty cool. All right. It's time to get to the nitty gritty. Technical stuff. Firstly, the controls. This game has the option to make circle be confirm instead of X. Awesome! I love this. Every game should have this. In fact, while we're at it, you know how the PS5 has a system menu for stuff like the Y-axis inversion preference or like your difficulty mode preference so that games can auto-configure your preferences if they want? Whether you like circle or X is confirmed should be an option here. Nah. Instead, this generation, they decided to make X be confirm be the global standard. X is confirm is the global standard, and they pushed it onto Japanese consoles as well. Japanese consoles in the past have always had circle as confirm. That's the opposite direction that they should have gone. Instead of taking away an option from Japanese consoles, they should have made it an option for American systems so that everybody can choose whether they want X or circle to be confirmed, especially when they've got this brand new menu in the PS5 that would be the perfect place for it. But okay, that's a tangent. Just had the tangent on the PS5 there for a second. But anyway, point is, Dino Crisis has good control options for people like me who want circle to be confirmed. Now, one weird thing that this game does is its resolution swaps. This isn't like a super uncommon thing, but this is a game where I think that it's worth talking about in the modern age. So PS1 generally runs at 240p. It can also run at 480i, and this usually has some specific uses. For example, like the boot up screen is 480i. But in a game like FF7, for example, 480i is used just for the game over or the disc swap screens. But the gameplay is in 240p. And I think the reason is that these nice big like images, like pictures, for the disc swaps or the game over, they get some extra resolution by using 480i. Now, Dino Crisis is one of those games that uses 480i for its menu screen. I think they wanted some extra resolution on the menus for the text or something, but this means that every single time that you switch in and out of the menu, it's going to change resolutions. So what does this mean? If you're emulating, it probably means nothing, so go nuts. If you're playing this on original hardware, on a CRT, also just go nuts. It doesn't mean anything. But if you're using original hardware on a modern display, you'll want to make sure that your video chain is able to handle this with minimal interruption. I use a RetroTink 5X, which handles it beautifully quickly. I mean, one of my favorite things about the RetroTink 5X is how quickly and seamlessly it handles resolution changes. For this game specifically, if you leave it on the generic 4:3 mode, because you don't mind like a tiny bit of blurriness on your pixels, then it's just fine. You can just plug and play. But if you are using the H-scaling phase detection on PS1 320 for the extra sharpness, I would recommend, I just found this out with this game, if you go to your auto phase detection, like after the phase detection auto locks the first time, you can go and change that auto section to the one that looks the sharpest. Because otherwise, if you don't do this, every time it switches to 480i, okay, and then it switches back to the game, and it'll be blurry for a couple seconds before it locks in with the auto phase detection. So yeah, what I did was I let it auto phase one time, then go into the options and change it to the one that looks the sharpest manually. For me, this was almost always 2 out of 4. One time it was 3 out of 4 for some reason. But yeah, so setting it here makes it so that it automatically goes into this phase each time, which means it won't have that second of blurriness anymore. Every time that you come back out of the menu, it'll be immediately sharp this way. And that's about that. Overall, I was way impressed by this game. Like, I knew it was similar to Resident Evil. I knew that this game was generally well liked, but I had no idea just how good this game is. It's a huge recommendation from me. If you're into this kind of thing, I'm really glad I finally played it. Like, yeah, I was taken aback with surprise by how good it is. It's actually kind of similar to the first time that I played Resident Evil 1. I grew up not playing Resident Evil, and I always knew that, like, people liked the games. But when I finally played Resident Evil, I was like, I didn't realize that it's like one of the best games ever, you know? So yeah, similarly, Dino Crisis, I knew people liked it, but I didn't realize just how good this game is. Again, huge recommendation. Play it for yourself. This game's great. All right. Holy fuck, that actually scared me. Cause I'm thinking about this other thing. Oh no! Okay, hang on. I very. Uh-oh. We got to get it to move. There, just shoot it once, get it to move, and then get out of here. All right, we're getting out of here. Okay, there we go.